Hi, my name is Brandon, and I'm an alcoholic and addict in recovery. Today I'm going to talk about the present moment. The present moment and staying in the present moment is something that eludes most addicts. It's something that we have a really hard time doing. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about that and then why being in the present moment has been one of the best parts of recovery for me. I'm going to start by reading some about this from Recovery 2.0 by Tommy Rosen. In this section of the book, he's talking about his formative years of drug use. And in this particular part, he's talking about a time when he started really getting into going to Grateful Dead shows and getting high there and taking hallucinogens and having these spiritual experiences that at first were amazing, and he was really in the moment and connected with all the people around him. But as time went on, he found himself slowly paying less and less attention to what was happening in the moment and paying more and more attention to trying to recreate moments from the past. So I'll read what he says about it. He says, "I was coming to these concerts for a profound spiritual experience, and if the band didn't deliver, I'd get really pissed off. Every now and then I'd catch myself and realize how out of the present moment I was. I was not trying to have an experience, I was trying to recreate an experience. This is exactly what an addict seeks to do. Having felt profound pleasure, I sought to replicate it again and again. Some nights I was more in the moment than others, but I was aware even then that something had changed. My experiences with the dead were fresh and new. I had no idea what to expect, no idea what was coming. I had then what Zen Buddhists called the beginner's mind. Later, I lost that altogether and became attached to a memory in the past." And I like that idea of becoming attached to a memory in the past, because that describes a lot of my problems with staying in the present moment when I was in my addiction. I was attached to things that had happened in the past and my memory of the way they had happened, and became obsessed with trying to recreate that, or with the absence of that from my present life. Continuing with what he says, "The present moment is elusive for most addicts. Not that we're trying to find it. We'd be happy anywhere, being anywhere, as long as we can avoid facing the now. Our addiction begins the second we start looking away, and our addiction story is built through the continuation of that habit." And so I found myself in my addiction more and more as the years went on, using my time when I was getting high, getting drunk, whatever, to either think about the past or plan for the future. But being in the present moment started to become less and less tolerable. I started to find more and more problems with the present moment. And to this day, in my recovery, I still have to be careful and watch myself, because there are times where if there's something else going on in my life and I start to get irritable, that irritability will come through and I will start picking apart whatever's going on in the present moment, usually at the expense of other people. And that's when I know I need to refocus myself. When I start to find a lot of fault with what other people are doing, and there's not a great reason for doing so, and spoiler alert, there usually isn't. That's a good indication that something's going on with me that I need to pay attention to and address. So the present moment is really, if you look at it, it's all that we know, all that we're guaranteed, all that we have. Yet in my addiction, I spent so much time trying to get away from it. by either distracting myself from the present moment or by thinking about the past and romanticizing the past, thinking about the future and catastrophizing the future, or over planning the future. Here's a weird thing I used to do, or I thought it was weird, but I'm betting a lot of other people did it too. I used to, one of my favorite things to do when I was going through a particularly difficult time or had a particularly difficult person that I was dealing with in my life, I used to get drunk or high and then go like to my garage or out on the porch where no one could see me and have a pretend conversation with that person where I could plan out everything that I really wanted to say to them and then practice for all the different kinds of responses that they could potentially make. And this tactic, it can be useful. I have found use for doing this in my recovery, but in a very limited and very controlled aspect. The way that I used to do it was, I used to stand and have these conversations for hours. And it was all a means of avoiding the present moment. It was all a means of trying to gain control over situations that were really outside of my control. What I wanted was control over the way I felt, control over the way other people responded to me, control over what I felt I deserved, and control over the way that the world unfurled in front of me. When I got into recovery and started to break all those things down, I started to see a lot of my pride and ego at the center of that desire for control. Once I let go of that pride and ego, something I continue to work on, by the way, this is not by any means gone from my life. It's a daily work to let go of these things. But once I started doing that, then the need to practice these conversations started to go away. The need to obsess about the future started to go away. And these days I don't think a whole lot about the future. In fact, I think the mystery of the future is kind of one of the fun parts of life. If I am having a conflict with someone, I don't think too much about how I'm going to resolve that conflict. In fact, I found one of the best ways to come up with a good idea about how to resolve a conflict with someone is to say a little prayer even if you don't believe in God, just say a little prayer where you say, all I really want for this person is good in life, and I want us to be, I want to be compassionate, loving to them, and then leave it. And then come back to it later and see what happens. And usually if I do that, I come up with a good way to address the situation that avoids the conflict that I thought was there in the first place. So I bring all of this up to say that the act of avoiding the present moment was one of my biggest addictions. And I loved drugs and alcohol because they helped me to avoid the present moment. And now in recovery, I pretty much am in the present moment all the time. I will find myself veering away from the present moment and on occasion, and when I do, I just gently bring myself back. If I'm having a real problem doing it, then I will use one of my tools to help me get into the present moment. Mindfulness meditation is great for that. Exercise is great for that. Or helping someone else is great for that. All of those three things really help me to stay in the present moment. Regardless, being present has been one of the gifts of recovery. But it is something that I have to work on. I have to keep an eye out on, because I do find myself still in situations where I drop out of the present moment. And that's where I get some indication of the work I still have left to do. That's it for today. I'll be back tomorrow with more. Have a good one.